couple of years ago, my son, who's now in second grade, he was then in kindergarten, and I see some of my fellow parents of my son's classmates here. He came home with the drawing that he made in school, and it was indecipherable. It was a big blob of black and gray and dark colors. And it was right during this week of Parshat Bereshit. And I said, "What did you draw in school today?" And he just looked at me and he said, "Tohu vavohu." Now, if you want a translation of Tohu vavohu, the translation is Tohu vavohu, meaning it's hard to translate. Reshit bara Elohim, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the second sentence, V'ha'aretz hayta tohu vavohu, and in this world, on this earth, there was this thing. Was it nothing? Was it everything? Was it something? But we're going to decide on a translation right now that many of the commentaries agree upon. Tohu vavohu is chaos. But for a moment this morning, I want to distinguish between scientific chaos and religious chaos. And how with religious chaos, only when we identify it at first, can we then find some purpose within it. Let's start with science. I was pre-med for like 6 months, so my science background goes like this, but I remember high school. In chemistry and physics, we learned the second law of thermodynamics. The word is entropy. And in science, the world begins with order. And second by second, minute by minute, day by day, year by year, more disorder, and it turns into chaos. In fact, it was the great physicist Stephen Hawking in his book about time, A Brief History of Time. He says that entropy, meaning from order to chaos, that is the way that we make a distinction between the past, the present, and the future. If everything stayed in the same state, everything would be the same all the time. But that's not how it works in the Torah. V'ha'aretz hayta tohu vavohu. At first, after creation, the world began with chaos. And it's up to us to partner with God to then reverse that order. And thankfully, the traditional Torah commentaries agree with this idea of chaos, and I just want to look at two of them right now because I think they give us some insight into how we take the chaos and begin to form it. Tohu vavohu are two words. There's tohu and there's vohu. Ramban, Nachmanides, splits them up, and he says tohu are the ingredients. It's the substance, it's the matter, but they're not formed into anything. If you ever made lunches for children, one of the hardest part of parenting, I think. That's why I don't do it. I do other things. It's like having the peanut butter and the jelly without the bread. You have the ingredients, but you don't see the sandwich. But what is vohu? Vohu is when God took those elements that he had created as chaos, and God clothed them with form. He put some substance to it. And Rashi goes a little deeper. He explains that this chaos is a feeling of emptiness. If you ever look at a Google Earth image before and after a destruction of an earthquake or a hurricane, they always show it on TV, right? The before and the after, and you see the before is full of civilization and habitation of a location, but the after, you see complete desolation and emptiness. That's what Rashi says tohu vavohu is. It's the astonishment, it's the feeling when you see that emptiness that we have in our hearts. the only time tohu vavohu is used, besides this morning in the second verse of the Tanakh, is when there's the destruction of the temple. And when Jeremiah is looking at the ruins, that one day Alexa and Aaron, God willing, this coming summer, will celebrate their B'nai Mitzvah again at the Kotel. Right next to it is the southern wall, and the stones still stand. When the temple was destroyed, that's what Jeremiah is speaking about. Complete emptiness. Tohu vavohu. And so when you take these two Torah commentaries, complete emptiness, but also some substance matter there, you realize that a world of chaos is an empty world. But we also know an empty world is also a world of chaos. And so how do you take this tohu and turn it into vohu? Turn that picture that I saw, by the way, it wasn't just my son 2 years ago, but as I told my kids last night at Shabbat dinner what I was going to speak about, they all ran to their rooms and they found the same picture that each one of them created. We all create some picture of tohu in our lives. There's a beautiful midrash of King David, and it says that he's digging down deep to find the foundations of where the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, would stand in Jerusalem. It says he dug down 1,500 cubits. That's a lot of feet or meters, depending on what system you're using. And when King David got to the bottom, he didn't find anything except he found a teapot. And so King David took this teapot and he was about to throw it away until the teapot began speaking to him and said, King David, don't throw me away. I promise, I have a purpose. King David told the teapot, what's your purpose here? And he said, King David, God placed me here to stand over the tohu, to stand over the chaos. King David said, that can't be right. How long have you been here? And he said, since the beginning of the world. King David still didn't take that for an answer, and he took the teapot and he threw it away. And at the moment that he took the teapot off the tohu, off that chaos, the chaos began to rise and bubble until King David, all he could do to calm it down was to sing a song. And he began to sing the Shirei HaMa'alot, the Psalms of Ascent, the songs that the Jews sang as they went on their pilgrimage festivals to Jerusalem. Joey Weisenberg, who's a contemporary Jewish musical scholar, he wrote a beautiful book called The Torah as Music. He was a classmate of mine in the music major at Columbia University. And he takes this midrash and he tries to understand what King David and the teapot were doing. And Joey Weisenberg explains that each of us are like that teapot. But we have three options. Just like the teapot, when it's ready to boil, all of those emotions of the chaos of the tohu can rise up and it can bubble over. Option number two, we can hold it all inside for nobody to see. Or option three, what King David did. For him, it was singing. For others, it's building. For others, it's art. But for all of us, it's creating. It's identifying that there is a tohu, that there is a chaotic piece of this world, and that chaos is an empty feeling. And so it's on all of us, Breshit bara, to identify it and then to create what we want this world to be. I want us to think back, not 365 days, but in the Hebrew calendar, 1 year from this Shabbat. Parshat Breshit. I wasn't here, and neither were you. We were all at home on different screens. When you talk about a tohu, when you talk about the astonishment of emptiness, that's what it was. the amazement of looking at empty walls, but we know the physical walls were here, the matter, the substance was here, but as I said before, we had to put the sandwich together. And this year, hearing Aaron and Alexa side by side chanting Shacharit, leading every aliyah of the Torah, chanting a Haftorah, a joint of our Torah. If that's not the definition of Vohu, I don't know what is. It's the matter coming together. This year we are here. These past few years, the teapot may have bubbled over, but we're like King David, we keep finding those songs to sing. You know, this holiday season was a holiday season like no other. Jamie Berman, our past president, is here. She can tell you about last year's high holidays. We thought was a season like no other. But each year, there's another tohu. But we have to find the vohu. Some of you are with me, not in this building, because on Rosh Hashanah, we felt the tohu, we felt the chaotic emptiness that many of us could not be with our families here in this building. But we found a vohu. Just a half a mile away, many of us gathered on the baseball field of the Church of Latter-day Saints, our amazing faith partners. Omid read Torah for us on third base. But we did it. We had a chance to take the ingredients, to take the matter, and to form it into something that we never thought it could be. And just 3 days ago, if you missed it, it wasn't streamed, it was only in person. Hundreds of us didn't dance here in Barad Hall, but we took the Torahs. We took them on the streets, into this neighborhood. We wore those Torahs with pride as we finished the Torah and began again. We knew we could never feel that emptiness again. And so we begin this year again. The same words, Parshat Breshit, the same picture, Tohu Vavohu. But this year we know what to do. We take our hands, we put them around those elements, and the simple job is for us to create. So this Shabbat, let's begin. Let's begin again and again and again. Because I know when we do, it's so much easier to give up. But it's so much harder to give in. But when we give in, and I know we all have participated and witnessed in this over these past few months, it's a world that will be beautiful, full of blessing, and God willing, one day full of shalom, of peace. Amen. We continue our service, page 204. Page 204, Cantor Child leads us, En Keloheinu.